Good morning and welcome to the new edition, the Saturday special of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. India is being convulsed by protests against a populist, falsely created idea that the government is discriminating against some communities. The government plea is that they're not discriminating. A Muslim cannot be discriminated in a Muslim country. A Christian cannot be discriminated against Christian country, and so on. And therefore, they are only permitting the persecuted minorities to come seek political asylum and become citizens. If taken properly, there can be nothing objectionable. But anyway, people always tend to disagree. And the oppositions always find fault with what the government does, and that's their job to do. I have no complaint against that. But just day before yesterday, the Chief of the Army Staff, who is going to be the Chief of the Defense Services of India, Gen Rawat, made a statement in which he condemned unnecessary violence and the destruction of public property. He made this statement, and voila, a volcano of protests, outbursts, criticism was there. The media was all agog. I read at least 15 editorials and op-eds condemning the statement of General Rawat. I also read that some former senior officers of Navy and Army condemned his statement, but there was no rebuttal from the general himself. And that is in keeping with the finest military tradition. The condemnation was that the General Rawat has indulged in political commentary. Now, there are two questions which arise from this criticism. A, is army not supposed to be political? By and large, yes. They are not supposed to be active politicians. But then, nor are the bureaucrats supposed to be politicians, nor are the teachers supposed to be politicians. They can give their opinion, but participation is not a part of their job. Army is also not supposed to condemn or promote any political ideology. The second, in this age of globalization, can you stop information from reaching? You cannot. So coming first to the first question, should army be a political? Absolutely. There's no doubt about that. In any civilized society, in any democratic society, is a civilian authority which is a supreme. Commander-in-chief, even, is a civilian, supposed to be a civilian, not an army officer. In India, also, the commander-in-chief of the armed forces is the president of India, though he acts on the opinion and advice of the prime minister, and the prime minister does it through a cabinet decision, a collective decision, and they are answerable to the parliament. In USA, the president is the commander-in-chief, but there are curbs on him as far as the Congress oversight is concerned. And it's everywhere. The chief of defense services, the commander in chief, and then you can have the people under him, defense minister, chief of defense, commander of the air force, commander of the armed forces, of the army, of the naval service, and so on and so forth. And they are supposed to be political. They are supposed to carry out the directives of the civilian government because that civilian government is outside. Now let's come to the second question. General Rawat did not say a single word about supporting or opposing CAA. CAA is a Citizen Amendment Act against which all these protests are there. Now, CAA, as I have already told you, was originally promoted in 2003 by Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. There's a video to which I referred about a week back in one of my comments here, that he said that the minorities from Pakistan and Bangladesh should be given the citizenship, and Modi government has done exactly that. So Rawat didn't say that what Modi government has done is right. No. But he only condemned the destruction of the public property. Now, is it not incumbent on any citizen to condemn the wanton misuse and destruction of the public property? Not even of the public property, let's say of the private property. Should he, as a taxpayer, not say, okay, you are protesting, fine, but in the protesting, why should you kill people? Why should you indulge in stone throwing? Why should you indulge in burning the buses and the buildings? What's wrong with that? And whether General Rawat does it while being an official chief of the armed services or as an individual clad in a dhoti outside and saying, "Gee, what the hell are you doing?" He has every right as a concerned citizen to object to the wanton destruction of public and private property. He has every right as an individual to condemn violence, but I would give all credit to General Rawat that he did not say a single word about the merits or demerits of CAA, that's the Citizenship Amendment Act. So that's the first part, that he was condemning dispassionately, objectively, the violence and the destruction of property, and no amount of sophistry, slogan shouting, or mudslinging can take away the right of any individual. He, as a member of the armed forces and a responsible member at that, maintained the equidistance from the government decision and the protesters' ideology. His statement was not ideological. It was not condemnatory of the protest, it was condemnatory of the violence and the destruction of property. Now comes the second part. Today, in this age, we say that armed forces should not make comments. As far as General Rawat is concerned, that I have taken up. But now, should they or should they not? As I said earlier, they should not make comments which go directly against the policy of the government. But then the same should be applied to the bureaucrats as well and to the judiciary. We have seen a Chief Justice making comments about an encounter and which suo moto then they set up an inquiry commission. Nothing wrong with setting up an inquiry commission. Facts must come to light. The encounter is a staged murder. It must be revealed to the people, and the guilty must be punished. I absolutely agree. But making a public statement was absolutely no. Anyway, now coming to that second part, that should the people not have their opinion? In any democratic society, it's the right of the citizens to have a public opinion. Well, secondly, profess it or not, that's the second thing. They can have a public opinion, a political opinion, but they cannot propagate it. If they propagate their individual public opinion, that can be considered to be wrong. But in giving expression Even if the General Rawat had said that I think there's nothing wrong with CAA, there was nothing wrong with that because I'm not able to say that's an act of the government passed by the complete parliament with majority approved by the President of India. It has become an act, it's no longer bill. And he said, well, this is acceptable. If he says it's not correct as a matter of fact, then it would have been wrong because that would have been going against the government policy. When he says the act is right, which he did not say incidentally, then he's not doing anything wrong. He is in fact adhering to the absolute fine line of discipline and carrying out his duty because all the policies of the government have to be carried out. The government in power. So his condemnation would be a violation of the code of conduct. But he's saying that he has full faith in the government and he'll carry out the commands of the government, shows his commitment to serve the civilian government. These are the fine nuances which are to be taken into consideration. And we people unnecessarily are taken in by the loud noise created by the opposition for the sake of opposition. And that is a problem which has to be looked into. As a matter of fact, those political leaders who condemned General Rawat should have been hauled upon coals. They have no business condemning a serving chief of staff. If he's wrong, cashier him. But that's what the government to do. But when the opposition and the political leaders in the opposition start opposing the servant chief, then the common soldier would have an opinion that our commander is wrong. He is not fit to do his duties. And that will breed indiscipline. So, what political opposition parties are doing are breeding a sense of treason and indiscipline. They are, in fact, encouraging, though very, very indirectly, the armed forces to not obey the order because the commander is incompetent. And that is where the problem lies. And these so called intellectuals posing, the pseudo intellectuals rather, who pose as journalists and the commentators, saying that General Rawat is wrong, haven't looked into these fine nuances, which show that what he did was not wrong, but what the opposition is alleging is in fact inciting the soldiers to disobey their commander. This is very subtle but very insidious action. This is akin to what J.P. Narayan had done in India in 1974, 75, that year, which prompted Mrs. Gandhi to impose emergency. He had ordered, he requested the army and the police not to obey the orders of the government. And there was no option left with us but to go in for emergency. As a matter of fact, these opposition leaders who have condemned General Rawat should be arrested for promoting indiscipline in the armed forces, thereby inciting a state of insurgency. And that is an act of treason. That's an act of treachery. That's an unpatriotic act because this can have dangerous repercussions. And then what the political opposition is doing is creating a Frankenstein. They should not forget that when they sow the seeds of their doubts in the minds of the soldiers, tomorrow they might be in power. It's a democracy. UP was in power, the Congress was in power, then the Modi came in power. Modi will go out, Congress can come in, or any other party can come in. So why create a situation where you are creating a monster which will gobble you up ultimately? It's a suicidal wish, and for a temporary benefit of bringing Modi down, they are destroying the nation and the country. As I said, General Rawat did not commit anything wrong because he did not comment on the right or wrong of CA. And if he had said the CA would be carried out as per the law, there would be nothing wrong with that. It was not a political statement. Political statement would have been in case he had made such a statement before the act was passed. When the act is passed, it's in the statute book. And until and unless government amends it, or the Supreme Court declares it to be illegal, it's there. Protests, yes, they can continue as long as they are peaceful. But bringing in the armed forces, trying to besmear the reputation of one of the supreme commanders, not the commander in chief, but the chief of the defense services who is going to command all the three is something absolutely unpatriotic, unacceptable, and breeds dissension and sows the seed of civil war. Or it might raise the army and they say, okay, hell with these dirty politicians, let's take over. And they might be coup. But maybe that's what the opposition wants. Again, they are creating a Frankenstein. The politicians and the so called intellectuals must exercise discretion and a fine sense of discrimination, identify what's wrong, look into the nuances of the situation, look at what their words are going to mean to the people, not what they are saying, but how they are saying, and how would the people receive it. The way they have said is, as I said, nothing short of reason. I hope better sense dawns. Let's take things as they are rather than impute motives which are absolutely a wrong thing to do. Thank you.